Hey, hello, my friends. Welcome once again to the live stream of consciousness. I am Michael Zinn. It must be Thursday. It is Thursday. It's December 8th. What's up? Good to see you all. Tonight is going to be a little interesting for me. I know it's not going to be a problem, but it's going to really be the live stream of self-consciousness because I chipped my tooth today. I don't know if you guys could see that. And I called my dentist and he was not available to fix it. And I was like, oh no, I've got to go live. But you know what? I was really kind of grateful for the reminder of who I am. I know that a lot of people might cancel the show or might feel self-conscious and not come on and all of that stuff. And I'm just like, what's the big deal? I have a chip on my tooth for a day. And I'm not going to miss this great opportunity for a great conversation with all you people out there who constantly come to my support. I appreciate you guys out there. I see you. Oh, my computer just blacked out because I put the mouse in the corner. So I just want to say what's up to Jilly, what's up to Lily, what's up to Tim. I see all you guys out there. It's good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So yeah, the live stream of consciousness. Again, it's December 8th. It was a crisp November day today. And I'm just really grateful. I think I'm on like episode 83, 84. I don't know how many episodes. The live stream of consciousness, as you guys know, when I thank you each week for being here, is just such a great place for me and a validation for me in intention. You know, I created this whole thing to just talk to people and connect, and it's really shown me so much light, and I've connected with so many amazing people. It started out as just a place to showcase some friends who were psychic mediums and Akashic records readers, and it grew into an opportunity to meet new people, and I always am meeting new people. And I had to bring this next guest on. When I met him, I had the most amazing meeting. I'll tell you the quick story and then I'll bring him on. So you guys know about Titan Studios. I've talked about it as I started working there and as I've grown there and enjoyed that job. One day we're having a meeting and they tell me a Super Bowl champion is coming in, Gary Brown. And he's talking about doing a podcast and we're going to work together. So I was excited to meet him. I'm not a huge spectator sports fan, but you know, I can certainly appreciate the weight of winning a Super Bowl championship, you know, and the accomplishment there. And anyway, in walk these two gentlemen into this meeting. Gary Brown, who's a big linebacker, he was for a linebacker for the Green Bay Packers, and my next guest, David Lionheart, who is this just good looking, kind of like looks almost like a mild mannered superhero, secret identity. And we had the most amazing meeting, just about who they were and what they do. And as an empath, I guess, and as who I am, I just received so much light during that meeting. It was amazing. And at the end, I had to actually say, "Can I give you a hug?" And I gave Gary Brown a big hug, and I gave David a hug, and I was just so excited to meet new friends. So without further ado, I'm going to stop babbling. I'm going to bring on my next guest, another amazing human, and he's going to tell you exactly how he became that way. Welcome to the show, David Lionheart. What's happening, David?
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing good. Thank you for being here, man. I'm so excited you said yes to come to the show, and I'm loving your the background of where you're sitting there. I'm imagining you're in your gallery. That's an awesome painting. I'm going to ask you the story about that painting in a minute. Once I initiate you to the live stream of consciousness. So we spoke briefly. You're getting a welcome from my viewers, welcoming you. We spoke briefly about the live stream of consciousness and about vibration and energy and life and how to understand it and I don't want to say control it, but understand it and I guess navigate it for yourself to live a happy life, because I think not a lot of people are able to, unfortunately, these days. So when I meet somebody like you who is able to, it's so evident and heartwarming, and that's how we're here now. But the initiation process is this. This is the live stream of consciousness. I love talking about things of a spiritual nature, why we're here, and energy, and how energy is everything. But what is consciousness to you, David Lionheart? What does that mean? What is consciousness?
Well, I guess I'll start by saying it was trying to sign in for this interview 10 minutes ahead of time because I didn't have the right tech or the right browser, and I was conscious I had to be somewhere very important with somebody very important,
Okay.
and I was kind of bumming out. And then I saw that I heard about the chip tooth thing, and you kind of powered through that. So I think when the right decisions are made on both ends to power through and figure out how to get there, all that matters is that you're there. And I think we
Mm.
put ourselves in these situations where sometimes we're afraid to show up because if something goes wrong, you just, oh, I'm just gonna, throw in the towel. But not being afraid to show up, even if it's not perfect or the way we envisioned it. Once you get there, it's almost like you get to the top of the mountain and you can see why you climbed. And and when you apply that to small situations instead of looking at it on a grand scale, like for me, like I have five giant buffalo behind me. This is a painting of you're actually in my studio. So
Awesome.
this is my private. Not many people come in here. You're the second guest
Wow.
to come in here.
Awesome.
But these buffalo are enormous. They're 5 feet each, and I wanted in my mind to make them present here in the studio, and that took a long time to get from point A to point B from when I started creating to here. But also it was part spiritual too, because you start removing bounds and limits from yourself that you put on yourself, and before you know it, you're doing something that you weren't expecting.
Mm.
And that could be helping somebody, it could be holding a door for somebody, putting yourself in those little moments and being reactive and conscious and aware in those small moments, moment to moment. And then
Mhm.
you start stringing those positive moments together, and uh, you have something to behold.
Mhm.
And it's not as easy as it sounds to do that. Sometimes we get lost. I've been off track. I felt a little bit lately, but
Mhm. Mhm.
getting back into the studio helps me be there and be conscious and kind of listening to ourselves help listen to other people around us.
Mhm. 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 All right, so I'm trying to wean the answer to the question from that. That's an amazing uh, answer and sentiment, and I agree with all of that. As a matter of fact, it's funny that you say it exactly the way you said it, because for the past few weeks, I guess, or even months, one of our listeners, Jill, made this little necklace for me, and it's hard to see
Oh,
it, but basically, I'll tell you what it says. It says, "Just show up." And really the sentiment was like, again, as I was saying, not a lot of it's hard to be happy these days, and I feel like a lot of people suffer from kind of these anxieties that are so simple of, you know what, I'm just not going to show up, it's easier. But nothing happens if you don't show up, and only something happens if you show up. And really the cool thing about that is that's all you have to do. You just got to show up, because whoever you are, that's what you're bringing to the plate, and that's where the magic happens. That's where you get to be you, and that's a big message here. So it's amazing that you hit it right on the head.
and it's actually how I met you, because Gary told me he's like you have to come meet these people, and I was like okay, and I think I even opened up the meeting with I have no idea why I'm here.
I think you know what, I think you did. And man, I mean, how did you feel about that meeting? I know for me it was really magical. I mean, just meeting you and hearing what you and Gary are all about.
Um, it it takes a village to get done what needs to get done as one,
Mhm.
and it's rare that you can walk into a room of I would say not strangers, but I really most of the room I had no idea who they were, but something clicked right away where there was like a really you talk about vibrations.
Mhm.
I think there was a shared vibration kind of going back and forth between both parties.
Mhm.
Not that there was a certain destination in mind, but I felt like we were all just playing a drum beat and going around the
Mhm.
room.
Mhm.
And when we walked out of there, we got everything we needed to done, and we
Mhm.
kind of didn't do much but like hug, and like get into
Yeah,
that spot.
yeah, totally.
And to do that with somebody that you've never met before, I think offers merit to the feelings behind the intention.
Mhm.
And also, apply that to the rest of the day. Like that doesn't have to stop there. Like when you leave that spot, again, situationally, you kind of keep that same mentality
Mhm.
um, and kind of desire to be new, listen. I
Right.
tell my volunteers that you don't need money to make a difference as long as you're willing to one show up, but
Mhm.
if you have a smile and an open heart and open mind, you can do a lot for somebody,
Mhm.
and that just quantifies over and
Totally.
over and over again.
Totally. And I think also once you kind of get into that mindset, you can take the energy from a meeting and walk away and be like, "Oh, that was a good meeting," and kind of use that energy for the rest of the day and throughout what you're doing, and kind of keep that energy going, spread it out, through that
I
time.
knew you were my friend after that. I was like, I like that dude. I like that dude's totally cool,
Yeah, totally. Me
and
too.
you're great at what you do. And just it's nice to connect with somebody. My friend Vinny, he does sound bath healing and sound
Oh,
instrumentation.
nice.
He and my friend Ryan and Angela, they're really instrumental in helping me understand the importance of sound, down to like you shouldn't have your cell phone plugged in near you at night while you're sleeping because
Mm.
that is putting off vibration and
Mhm,
stuff
mhm,
like that coming off of you.
mhm,
So, which
mhm,
I
mhm,
believe. But they helped me kind of come around to even being receptive to that kind of love
mhm, mhm,
and on that kind of space. I'm a tough guy in a tough guy business most of my day,
mhm,
and
mhm,
even for guys like myself, it's important to get in touch with just some of those interior areas that need the vibration of love and
mhm,
to
mhm, mhm.
feel the pain and but also feel the joy and kind of smell the roses too a little bit and
Right.
love is everywhere and so for me when you were mentioning vibrations I thought of Vinny and he's a big part of my spiritual growth with understanding sound.
Totally, totally, and
Yeah,
that's a whole other conversation. But
I know.
sound is a vibration, and it is really critical to kind of the whole puzzle, understanding the whole puzzle of what vibration is, and I think most people are able to recognize how sound or how music or how something like that can affect their mood, and oh wow, I am being affected by this energy, you know what I mean? So it's a pretty cool thing. So I want you to share your story, but I do have another question before we get there.
Is this
And
still the initiation?
it still is the initiation,
Okay.
but it usually it leads into the conversation, because this is really what it's all about, and that is
I'm an open book for you. Whatever
awesome.
you want, Mike. It's open book.
Awesome. So Tim says he loves the Buffaloes, and I do too. And again, I'm going to ask you some questions about that, because I'm feeling some energy from them, and I feel like I want a little bit of a story. But the question is really kind of a continuation of that. So I feel like these are my beliefs, and I feel like most people I invite on the show have the same beliefs, and I want to know where they come from. And those beliefs are that there's more to existence than we're taught in school. You know what I mean? There's more to life than the three dimensionality of it, and the physicality of it. Again, when you get into energy, and when you get into the idea of maybe past ones existing as spirits or anything like that. Um, was there is I'm imagining that you believe that, but was there a moment that you can remember that was that light that you said, "Wait a second, there's something more to it than I thought, or than I've been told."
Um, I grew up in a household that was very spiritual, and my parents' religion shopped a lot. So we
Mhm,
studied across the board from Jehovah's Witness to Soul to Catholicism to
mm,
everything out under the sun. And I don't know if my mother was looking for something in particular or something that felt comfortable to connect with the spirit, but I think we always grew up with faith, and
mhm,
she instilled faith in me at a young age. And we grew up with very minimal means. If the grocery bill was $5.35, she reached into her pocket and there was $5.35.
wow.
Like, and she's like, "Thank you, Jesus. Like, thank you, God." So
Mhm, mhm,
wherever that flies, I grew up, I wrote track and field, I wrote faith on my leg.
Mhm,
like before every race, just because you have to believe that you deserve to be there to help
mhm,
and to contribute. And um, I think I feel I have a understanding and like a reception for pain. I think I
mhm,
feel when someone's in distress, or I can sense that. Like, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I know when someone's not doing good.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
And I didn't ask for that.
mhm,
And
mhm,
some days it's tough to have,
mhm,
I'll say.
mhm,
But I think that you're not given this feeling and this directional movement unless you're meant to be there to grow, to learn how to
mhm,
become better at it, or to
mhm,
understand why you are doing it.
mhm, mhm,
And I don't label it in much more than I just close my eyes and know that when my gut tells me to do something, I'm going to do it, and that's what I'm gonna. It's the best thing I can do.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and so with that guidance, my son, he'll religion shop with my mom too, and go do
mhm,
his thing, and wherever he goes. I have friends that have very different spiritual beliefs than the ones that I grew up with that
mhm, mhm,
I think are really important to have exposure to and to understand, and why crystals are important to have around you and absorbing energy, and why sound is important to be around you. And
mhm,
um, I think the more we listen to each other at what makes each other happy, we can apply part of that into our lives too.
mhm,
And we don't
mhm,
have to
mhm,
overcommit to something that people are afraid of. But
mhm,
when there's love, there's something to be interested in, and at
mhm,
least worth listening to. And if somebody
mhm,
feels love from something, I want to hear about it, and
mhm, mhm. Wow, yeah.
take what I can from it.
Awesome, awesome. That's great, and I guess yeah, it does kind of it does have to do with you and who you are in your story. So I'm just going to kind of briefly open the floor for you. Um, but obviously, David is an artist. That's his artwork behind him, and we're going to show some more of that. I pulled some artwork I want to show. You're also an author. So the reason that you were in this meeting with me is you helped Gary Brown write a book, a biography kind of. Reflections of a Champion, and that's why we're working together on this podcast. Just kind of helping to spread your light and the story, and just raise the vibration of the planet. Hopefully, that's the mission, right? Um, so and then also you have a nice accomplishment under your belt of being a TED talker. So you had a TED talk, which is like, I think, a pretty big deal, and not many people get to have a TED talk. I love the whole idea of the TED talk because most of them are interesting and most of them are relevant, and I think everybody can relate. Your particular TED talk, and I love this set of words that you have on your website, trauma, um trauma, what's the second one? Adversity and then triumph, right? Are those the trauma, adversity, triumph, right? And that's really your story. When I saw your TED talk, I had no idea. I mean, we had met, and I met this beautiful angel of light, and this person who just had such a great view of living in life, and to the point where it overflowed. You know what I mean? You're the kind of person who I think affects other people in the room, that they're like, wait, life isn't so bad. You know what I mean? Like, this could be a good thing, and I love that energy. Um, but if you could give us a synopsis of that TED talk and tell us what you went through to become this David Lionheart that you are.
uh, I gotta hang out with you more often, Mike. I tell you, you're really nice to me.
Oh.
Um, I my mother taught us when we were young that there's always somebody going through something much worse and much different than us, whatever that problem. Like the 535 in the pocket thing, like, we're lucky, man.
Hmm.
Some You'll reach in, it's not there.
Hmm.
Uh, so growing up with humble means, but also, my mother was very instrumental in my life. My father, whom I love and I forgive for his decisions, but who left us when we were young, and we had to deal with that situation, in the inner city, and my mother did an incredible job getting us out of there in a healthy way, and whatnot. And so some things happened. I was abused by a family member when I was younger, um, which is horrible, and I wasn't the only one that he was doing it to. that played a little part in my life, obviously. Um, and just being without the father in the home, my uncles kind of stepped up and were there. My mother was the father figure. I became the father figure. My sister would give me Father's Day cards,
Wow.
kind of thing. And the three of us were really tight, kind of going through that. And my mother remarried to my stepfather, who's really important in my life. He's awesome. Taught me music, showed me music,
Wow.
and he was just over yesterday hanging out. And so he had a son, and we met because Jonathan was throwing rocks at my mom and me and my sister, and so that's how we met. And it was really cool. And so Jonathan would live a troubled teenagehood. He was very rebellious. Like Nirvana was really huge at that time,
Mhm.
and he had a very strong stance, and he ended up taking his own life as a just troubled but very headstrong teenager,
Wow.
and that had a big impact on our family. And my sister experienced some loss with one of her children, and you know, I you add up those things, and I kind of said it in that talk on that night. Which at that talk, I almost walked off the stage. I almost didn't give that talk because I didn't. I was closing the show, and there was a moment like the editor did a really great job, but I almost walked off the stage before I
Why?
even opened up my mouth. It's hard to tell somebody some of those things like that
Sure.
are hurtful and that have hurt you.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Art's funny. You put your art up on a wall and it's open for judgment. And I wasn't ready to do that at one point in my life, and I wasn't ready to say those things. But I'm involved in a charity that I started, where we try and are encouraging folks recovering from trauma to open up and be vulnerable and share that information. And so I
Hmm.
wasn't doing that, but I was asking them to do it, and
Hmm.
that's why I stayed on.
Mm.
And so I grew up angry because anger at those things when they're hurting you. I was working at like 12, washing dishes, doorknobs, whatever. I was hopping a bus to go get to Denny's,
Mm.
and my friends were partying, you know,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
and so you grow up angry.
Right.
I accomplished things and I was liked. I was a liked person and I was a state champion in 400 hurdles, but it was out of anger, not out of love.
Mm.
And so that was a big part of me, and learning how to switch that around was a big part of my growth. And that night of the TED Talk was, I think, the night that changed. Everything changed.
Wow.
And my mother was in the audience, and she heard some things, and she knew some things, and we had this exchange also where we brought some closure because that's tough as a single mom, like knowing that was going on, and you didn't know what was going on, so you couldn't do anything about it. You're working, the kids are,
Right. Right. Well,
like
she
what
was
a
dealing
mess.
with it at the time. Yeah, she was doing
Yeah,
her
and
best. Yeah.
she's the focus of that TED Talk, and because
Hmm.
no matter what little we had, she always gave back, whether it was her time, her
Hmm.
efforts, her money, whatever it was, she gave half of what she had and gave her time as much as she could, even when she was doing all those other things.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I understood that there was, on that painful side, there was a way to heal that helped heal others and heal yourself, and that
Hmm.
was like the giving back side. And so Play for Your Freedom was the charity that I started,
Hmm.
and we're 10 years old in October, and learning a lot about different people's needs and how important a conversation is with
Right.
somebody, and just simply sharing some words and a moment. Our volunteer corps is really great at that. And I
Hmm.
thank my team. I think one of my team members might be listening. He told me he was going to chime in. Um, so David Lionheart is, I think, constantly growing and changing. And if I see something I want to do, I take it on. I just started painting for real like 3 years ago, and I needed a healthy outlet to deal with some of the heavy side of the charity, the suicide of it, the
Hmm.
a lot of, you're a sponge for absorbing a lot of negativity, putting out the double capacity of positivity to
Hmm.
those folks. And when you're giving, you have to find a way to give back to yourself. And then art fell into my life and became a way that I was able to give back to myself. And like I said, not too many people come down into this space. This is like, Wolverine and the recharging
Ah,
team, you know.
nice, nice. See, I said you were a superhero. I knew it.
So
You
that
got
it's
something going on down there.
yeah, and the big push is, I've got involved in fashion, I got involved in art, I wrote a book for Gary, I interviewed a young man tonight who said, I'd never say no to anything. I say yes to even if I don't think I can do it, if I can get it done ethically, like I'm saying yes, I'm going for it.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And I want my son, although he'll grow up very different than I did, to grow up knowing that no matter who you are or where you're from, you could be whatever you want.
Mhm,
There's
mhm.
no such thing as the carpenter has to only be the carpenter, the artist
Right,
only has to be the artist.
right, right.
You can find happiness in finding what other people find fulfilling spiritually, and
Totally,
take something from that, like, so it's
totally.
that's consciousness, for
Yes,
me,
yes,
so
totally.
that to answer your the long answer
We
long,
got the answer.
I
We got it.
circled back to it, man. I
Yeah,
got you. I hope I
that's
passed
awesome.
introductions.
No, and you know what? I think what's great is again, it's no secret that we are living in some tough times right now. Humanity as a planet is really struggling. To figure some things out, and I think that's what's so great. About the live stream of consciousness and this conversation and people like you, relationships like this, is when you meet someone who you're like, wait a second, it's not all about conspiracy theories and fear and these things that I certainly believe and think about, the government and all of these things. You got to think about them, but the show is my intention to bring light, to connect. One of the things that was so cool was when this started a couple of years ago. uh, Social media was a battlefield. It was so divisive and it was so horrible, and I found, look at this, I'm using this platform to connect people together, not only for me to connect to you, but for the audience to watch this story and to connect. As a matter of fact, Jill earlier said, much love to you and thank you for your strength and sharing some commonalities with me as well. So what you were saying about, you almost walked off the stage. I think innately you knew, something inside you knew, like, just show up. And because you showed up, I'm sure there were people in the audience who related 1,000,000% to what you were saying. Adversity is and this is funny because it kind of is in your other thing. I'm going to show the PTSD movie. uh you know just because somebody looks fine doesn't mean they're fine. I think most people are experiencing some adversity at home or whatever it might be. It's a challenge. Life is not easy. And that's what's so great about being able to go through life with a smile and smile at your fellow human being and want to give them that smile instead of being like, well, what do you got for me? Make me smile. Come on, like, give that smile, be the love you want to see, right? That's just such a great
Yeah.
philosophy, and it works so well. So I think Tim, we're getting a pink into the inner sanctum. He's responding, I think, to your about being in your gallery with flying colors. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what that means. And Tim says also absolutely some commonalities with him as well. Tim also has, you know, triumph. I love that word, over adversity. You know what I mean? It's like that's the I think that's the thing that's appealing to me, that energy of, hey man, life beat the crap out of me, but here I am showing up anyway, and I'm not going to let life show me. I'm going to show life. You know what I mean? And that's just the attitude I love. So again, what I love and the energy about you and is the idea of being in service to others, and like just knowing that if you go out there and you show up and you want to help someone, that's going to come back a million times, and we've been there, so we know that. And it's, some people may not really get it if they haven't tried it. um but it is such a great thing. So this was before I knew you. You were involved. Play for Your Freedom is an organization you started. Tell me what that is.
We provide fitness and peer-to-peer support for veterans and their families while they transition from military life to civilian life. And that can be a veteran in the community, also, or our primary focus are hospitals. So we'll work with specific units, everything from the PTSD unit, spinal cord, substance use, the domiciliary, the acute mental health unit, which is like a double security mental health unit,
Mhm.
and women's specific units, and then anybody in between, who's like in limbo waiting to get like a label to go somewhere to get help.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and we are turning 10, and in those 10 years, we've helped over 5,000
Congratulations.
veterans, thank you, and their families in our programming, in addition to supporting other organizations that we believe in that do what we don't do. And so we have a very simple, procedure in that we welcome in a busload of veterans from hospital, and we play lighthearted sports, and then always end with a huddle, get everybody in because not everybody participates at first, but they
Mhm.
eventually come around and
Mhm.
want to be a part of it. So you kind of like I look at it as three. I have 3 hours to help somebody change their mind about life,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they can come in pissed off and then hopefully leave like hugging and smiling and with a full belly of home cooked food. So then we break bread afterward. We do a home cooked meal or a really healthy catered meal, and they take home all the leftovers. And for anybody who didn't make it out, my
Mhm.
dad will play music. My stepfather and Nick will play music for them. And then our volunteer corps and my family will help serve the food and stuff like that. So it's a really family, like a lot of people, families can be a place to go heal,
Mhm. Mhm.
and some people don't get associated with that or whatever, but if you make up that space for someone that becomes a safe place to exhale and then
Mhm.
recharge and bring something in, that does something. And then year after year after year, more and more people wanted to feel that. And so we
Mhm.
got repeat guests. We had people that would be with us for years, that were just taking that time to heal.
Mhm.
And then some people that we'd see for 30 days and they're out. And we
Mhm.
just got a testimonial from somebody that happened years ago. And so I want to talk to you about vibrations over the long term. Um, he reached out and he's like, "Hey, I played football with you. Here's the picture." He's like, "I remember you guys and your team. I changed my life around. I got healthy. I got fit. I got clean. But I just took third in a jujitsu tournament,
Wow.
And he's like, and I remember it was those days that you and your team helped me out that day. And you don't know, like holding the door for somebody or smiling at them, the vibration can end there at the door, or it
Mhm.
can continue to echo on throughout eternity because
Mhm.
not only is that person coming back like kind of full circle and saying thanks to the group, but using it to help others and continue the sound
So
going.
cool. Yeah, that's so
So
amazing.
really, really cool. And it came at a good time to hear. At 10 years is a long time to
Mhm.
to do that, and willingly, of course, and to hear that kind of a story come across the desk is positive, worthwhile. You mentioned social media before being a dead zone. Like it could be a lot of wasted time if you don't get in there and get out. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
hit the
Mhm.
hit the hit the items you need and get out of
Mhm.
there.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
But you come and spend an hour with you every Thursday. That's
Mhm.
quality time. That's something
Right.
that you're going to get out of it, and it's going to feel good. And that's why it's an honor to be here.
Right.
Um, so,
Thank you
so
so much.
thanks. And so that's how I met Gary Brown, was at Play for Your Freedom. So he walked in with one of our volunteers, Jeff, had a connection with the NFL alumni. In comes
Mhm.
Gary Brown and four other guys who decided that month they were going to say yes to each other. If they have an event, if they have a community need, say yes, show up. We're
Mhm.
going, guys.
Mhm.
Like, let's go. And so in walks Gary. I don't even talk to him pretty much the whole entire event. And I snag his autograph at the end because we sold a ball to pay for the event, and all the guys
Mhm.
had to
Mhm.
sign it
Mhm.
so I could afford it. And they're walking out the door. I'm like, don't leave. uh, and so he called me up a couple days later, and he's like, "Hey, I don't know what happened the other day or who you are, but I'm still smiling, and I want to do it here on Long Island." And
Wow.
so I said, give me a couple weeks. I'm still new. That was my first one. I'm still new. I got no idea. Within a half hour, I had an appointment on a hospital in Long Island, and we were off to the acute mental health unit. And we go into that place, and that was crazy because not a lot of people go there, I guess. And they only have one common room and only their bedrooms, and that's where they live for 45 days at a clip until they
Oh
get
wow.
healthy enough to be released. And that's
Mhm.
that's deep in there. And so I sat next to a guy who was like, "Hey, thanks for coming in." I'm like, "No problem, man." He's like, "Nobody ever comes in here because they're afraid that we're gonna hurt them." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, they think that we're like crazy and we're gonna hurt them, so nobody
Mhm.
visits us." He's like, "My own family doesn't even visit us, here."
Wow.
So to hear somebody like that say that, they fought for our freedom that we have now to have this conversation even,
Yep.
and uh, that they thought that the people that they fought for were afraid of them. We knew that we had to bridge a gap that was connecting somebody that is owed, a similar gratitude to a teacher and somebody else who's contributing to our side. Everybody has a different blessing and a different talent.
Yep.
Give me a pile of wood, I'll make you a house. Give that guy a helicopter and he'll fly it. Like
Right,
there's
right, right.
everyone's guy. So it was eye-opening to me that we have to bridge a lot of gaps in our community, but in my specific space, I wanted to
Mhm,
not let that group feel left out and let
mhm,
them know that in 45 days, if you're cool, you're going to be playing football with us out there. And so we'd go from unit to unit, space to space with all these folks and ask why they weren't with us, why the spinal cord unit isn't out on the football field with us. So they
mhm,
have a rule. We give them 5 yards and then we tackle them, that's come out and play football with us. Like it's a
right,
whole thing.
right.
So asking why somebody wasn't there or wondering why isolation is the number one killer, and we're constantly at battle with trying to get people to find hope, and you can't find hope when you're alone. Like,
Mhm,
get
mhm,
out there, find a friend, talk to a friend, say hello. It's really
mhm,
easy to do it digitally.
mhm,
So I always encourage people to just try and stay connected. And
mhm,
so after 10 years of running this organization, the most important efforts and phone calls are made on the one-on-one basis when somebody reaches out that they're having a rough night.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I learned that it's not about having 5,000 people at an event or raising 100 grand. Those things help, and you need that to make the world go round.
mhm.
But when the phone rings, someone needs you to answer it. You answer it.
Wow, yeah,
So I
that's so
learned that.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, totally. I love what you're saying because I feel um, like it's such a heavy task, right? To show up and be this, whatever it is you're trying to be for these people, but it's so authentic. Like you just know I just got to show up, right? You just know I know what I'm in it for. I'm in it to have football and to make these people feel good. So it's not even like I feel like that probably just energizes you for that day. You wake up and you're like, oh, this is what we're doing today. I can't wait to do it. You're probably so excited. And again, I talk about authenticity a lot here too, because that is something I don't think you can fake. Not only I don't think you can fake it, but that's the energy that comes through. That's the energy that came through with you and Gary that day in the room, and was reflected back,
Yeah,
from our group,
totally.
because we're authentically, there as well. And I think that's what's going to save humanity, really, is people who can step up and be authentic and be accountable for what it is that they're doing and contributing, and not looking at what the other guy's doing and being like, well, why is he doing this, or what's going on, like not even concerned with what's outside, which is, again, that's the authenticity I see in you, is you're just doing what you're doing and you're so focused on it that it becomes that much more powerful, right? Awesome. I'm going to take a quick little segue here. I do want to start talking about your artwork. Just looking at the time real quick. I know this is only a couple minutes. I hope you don't mind, but I do want to show the trailer to the film that you made. And maybe before I do, briefly, can you tell me, is it following it's a particular story that you're following of a person, or is it a few people, or?
It's the representation, a real representation of what it's like when a service member comes home after service, and from the time they sign on the line to the time that they're pushing a shopping cart in a grocery store, wondering what the heck am I doing here? I should be in the helicopter going, and
Mhm,
or I'm struggling with something, and we wanted to tell real stories from real people that I know, that I personally know,
mhm,
and
mhm,
that were relevant in that space, and to educate people a little bit more on folks around them, whether they're your employees or friends or a family member. We've had a lot of people, reach out saying that the film connected with them from different levels, and that's what we wanted to get to.
mhm.
So I can answer any other questions that you have about it, but it's like a real life story from these
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's great. All right. So folks, bear with us. I'm gonna show you guys the trailer for David's film. Here we go.
Not everybody who looks normal and fine is normal and fine. And I didn't know what PTSD was, really.
I would never fathom my brother ever going overseas to fight a war. Like, it just didn't make sense. That was other people. Those were the veterans you learned about in school.
I put the gun to my head.
His body was found in the Delaware River the next morning.
He was prescribed painkillers at the height of the overprescribing epidemic.
A patrol was coming in to drop off supplies, and he opened the gate, and the gate was booby-trapped.
There was no sleep, no days off.
They did a big job by signing on that line for us, and I become more and more aware of the complexity of the veteran community every day that goes on within this, and there's more and more to be thankful for, and more that we need to do as a whole for them.
He was so proud. That was his accomplishment in life. He was always a soldier. How do you make that impact on the world that you're trying to make when you think that your best years are behind you?
But as I sit there and I listen to each veteran just tell their story, they're suffering.
Trying to prepare them the best way that we can as people to become people again. I have a 4-year-old and he's into superheroes right now. And I told him yesterday that I was coming to sit in a room full of real superheroes. We're up against a giant and we are just trying to chop its legs out from underneath it. Because we have to stop this staggering amount of people that we're losing on our own soil and people that fought for us to live a free life, and they can't even enjoy that free life themselves.
Looks amazing, really cool. I think I'm just reflecting and responding to it because I'd seen it before, but I think the biggest thing I'm getting from that is the idea of non-judgment, meaning just not, like that's one of the things that's so divisive in this world is everybody's looking at everybody else saying, well, you this or you that, and it's just no. Like no judgment. Like we're all human beings, we're all going through the same hardships, and I feel like I really hope that film reaches people in that way, and they can relate to it and feel that compassion, for other people in general. You said it, the first line is, not everybody who looks like they're doing okay is doing okay, and that's the important thing. Tim says, nice, powerful, very moving. Yes.
Thank you, Tim.
And so I'm going to move on from that a little bit to a little more happy stuff. One of the things that really hit me with you and Gary in the meeting was the idea that Gary, who was this Super Bowl champion, he became disabled. He had whatever it was. I'm not sure of the whole situation, but he was not able to play football anymore. And he was disabled. He needs a cane to walk around, and it put him in a place of wondering what he was going to do. And I think I want to have him on the show, so I don't want to give away too much of his story, but I think the great part of that story is when he realized that disability was a way for him to relate to some other people who had disabilities and show them, wait a second, Gary Brown, if he can still do this and he can hold his head up high, I can too. And that's really that's just really the beauty of the story. And again, I think in both you and Gary, and for me in general, in my own journey, I started to really realize in the last couple of years the reflection that I see in people. And it's funny because you're reflections of a champion, but like you start to see a little bit of yourself, your humanity in other people. And it's such a good feeling because you're looking at someone who's completely different person than you, and you're feeling love, and you're feeling like relating to that person, like, wow, you're a human, I'm a human, we're going through the same things, regardless of how different they are, they're the same, Go ahead.
It's amazing. It's hard to find that true inspiration sometimes, what you're looking for, and I became friends with Gary and became friends and then learned a little bit more, but he always is so consistent with, I could either hurt at home or I can hurt out helping somebody. And he's goes, no matter what. Like you said, there's no reason to complain, and not get up and go. And, selfishly, I rely on him to when I'm in a foul mood or having a bad day and I want to like hook up with him and like he'll cheer me up, he'll get me going. And I think he delivers hope to people who are looking for it, who might have gone through some of the things that he did physically, paralysis and things of that nature. So when he does come on your show, I'm gonna watch because I always get something new. I hear him talk all the time. We do talks all the time, but there's always something new that pops out and comes out, and it's worth listening to. And I guess I still like listening to him, even if I heard the story 100 times. I still like hearing it. He creates a vulnerability in the room that helps me continue to nurture that for myself, and then I can help spread that to others as well. And so he's a big proponent of that in my life as well.
Wow, that's very vulnerable of you to say, but I am more than certain that you do the same thing for him in many ways. Maybe not exactly the same ways, but like you guys,
more like peanut butter and jelly. We're on the same sandwich,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on the same sandwich.
I was gonna validate what you're saying. I was gonna say, man, Gary, he is a magic presence, because I mean, here he is, 6+, huge dude, and all I wanted to do was give him a freaking hug when he left, and it was like, and I can imagine. But you also you have that same energy. It was definitely the combination, and you certainly do bring it out in each other. You guys kind of help elevate each other's vibration. So vulnerable is authentic, Julie's saying, and I gotta agree with that. I was speaking to my mom. My mom, she fell a couple of days ago and broke her bone in a couple of places. She's an older woman.
Is she okay?
She's okay. She couldn't get any surgery, or they didn't have to put a cast. It had to set naturally, whatever the break was. So she's kind of got to deal with it for 6 weeks, and she's in pain. I can, when I talk to her, I can hear that she's in pain. And she, she sounded a little bit like she was on the verge of tears, and she said something about, I don't want to cry. Why would I cry? It's not going to do anything. And I said, no. I said, let it out. I said, crying is so healing. I mean, it really is. It may not feel like it sometimes when you're doing it, but when you're done, it's such a release, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's just a way to move on from whatever those emotions are that are come along with the physical pain, so I told her to cry, and of course, that starts you going, and but it felt so good. I knew it was a release for her, and I knew it was just something she needed to do, so I don't know why I got into vulnerable is authentic. I was just thinking of my mom being vulnerable,
I wish her fast healing. First of all, tell her I said hello, and I wish her fast healing. And I recently met somebody who had a very troubled life, but was really cool and came to our event and participated, and said it was just one of those moments like where the world stops and like the only thing you hear and it's like is like watching his lips move. And he's like, no two tears are the same, and tears of joy are different from tears of sadness. Like no two tears are the same. And it's really important, like you said, to stay in touch with both of those sides. Like tears of joy are also really important, like to be moved to tears of joy, and to also understand that the tears of sadness are kind of washing away some of that sorrow.
Absolutely.
Gotta be there.
Yeah, I feel like, and it's interesting because I think as I've grown into certain perspectives about emotions and stuff, I can experience something traumatic and cry from it, and it's like this tears of grief, but I can transmute that energy into that joy, because it's that same process, right? That same manifestation. This is what I always say about crying, which I think you might like. Crying is actually the most proof that we have that you can manifest things physically with your thoughts, because crying comes from a thought. You're thinking of something, whether it be an inspirationally joyous thought or you lost somebody, and you're thinking that thought and then manifesting physically, your eyes are starting to produce water, your throat is choking up. Like there's a physical thing that actually happens with that. So you are proving that you can manifest physically with your thoughts. And for me, that's also the moment that you are actually touching your own soul. So it's like, so for me, if I ever see something or feel something and I start to cry from it, I take notice, because I'm like, the universe is talking to me right now. Whatever's happening is significant in this moment, because I'm touching my soul. So
we need more moments like that in our life where we feel alive. That's what makes you feel alive.
Absolutely. I'm just setting up my browser here. I want to just share a couple of things here visually. Tell us about, you said you just started recently painting over the 3 years ago, did you say?
I've always been creative, but the kind of artwork that I'm creating now and the painting I'm doing now are on a larger scale. And I kind of locked myself out of the house one weekend in the driveway with a pot of coffee. And I'm a builder by trade, so I had my hands on some treasure, copper, fabric, metals, different things laying around. And I started creating some mixed media art. I had some house paints. I started painting, and I didn't stop. My driveway was covered in paint, and that was, July 13th, 3 years ago. And
You just all of a sudden, poof, you were this maniac.
yeah, I started that conversation because I needed to talk somewhere and I didn't know where to do that. And I've created probably close to 300 works of art, from 36 by 36 to 10 foot by, 8 foot, whatever. I like working bigger installations.
I can see
And
that.
my mind kind of feels purpose if I have a large canvas to go
And
after.
I love that style and what you're doing in that size, because I think really, as far as I forget the word, man, I went to art school, the fresco, what the dimensionality of the paint, you really start to see like the strokes and the paint and the material, and it becomes more of a physical 3-dimensional thing than a
Yeah.
2-dimensional piece of art.
They're very textured. Yeah, there's lots of texture and lots of depth on them. And whenever
I
kids
love
come
that.
in the gallery, kid walks right up, right, and I have their hands on the painting. But I encourage it. I'm like, feel the art, like see it's strong.
Oh, that's
If
awesome.
if it passes the Nerf gun test at home, then it'll survive anything.
That's funny. So before I bring up the art, I just want to, Tim, who is again one of my regular viewers here, has also been through some adversity. He's going to be on the show as well, and he actually has had his stomach removed from his health
Oh
issues.
God.
And so he's gone through some physical adversity. I'm thinking of the word. And he says, I find the disabilities enabled his other abilities and fine-tuned them to a higher level.
Yeah, right on, Tim.
I will
And
definitely say about Tim, to find abilities I didn't know I possessed. And that's why he's going to be on the show, and that's why he watches the show,
Yeah.
because it's just this kind of understanding there. All right, so let me see if I can share my screen here. Share screen window. Here we go. So before I bring this up, let's talk about the buffalo behind you.
Okay.
I feel like, someone can look at that painting and be like, okay, cool, animals, natural landscape, but I am definitely getting some like tribal Indian soul vibes maybe from that. Does that have to do with that at all? Is there a spirit animal kind of stuff going on?
It's a 10-foot stair, because they're 5 feet apiece. So the title of the installation is 10-foot stair. And they both have very different personalities and positionings. The tan buffalo here is much closer to the edge of the canvas than the blue buffalo. And the blue buffalo is a little bit more standoffish and kind of set back, but a little bit more wise, and knows that it doesn't need to fluff up or walk forward to understand what's happening. But they also have like an admiration and a love for one another at the same time. And there's this 10-foot stare that they're just figuring each other out, protectively, lovingly, and kind of intensely. And maybe there's love there as well. I don't know. But they're both really cool, and they're large. The core of their eyes, you can see into the canvas. It's very deep. The textures are very deep around that space. So when you're standing in front of the painting, you can like look into this eye of these two really
Three-dimensional.
beautiful
Yeah.
creatures. And I went out west to Yellowstone and Glacier National, and the Grand Tetons, and when a beautiful creature that is not, like walks right up to you and just keeps on walking, and it's got vibration. Talk about vibration. You can
Hmm.
feel. You couldn't mistake that. We could have both have our eyes closed and we would know that we were there,
Right,
and
right, right,
or
right,
I would know that they were there,
right.
and that was just blew me away. And I was living very intense for a while and not paying attention to what was around me. And a trip to the Grand Canyon had me touching clay and touching stone, getting in the dirt, hiking, like looking at my wife, looking at my child, like just being a little bit more aware and alert of some of those moments around me.
Mm.
And going out west, I was prepared to take in. There was no grace period. I went there to absorb that vibration, the color, the energy that came from the wildlife, the bears, the bison, like everything
Mm.
was so cool. Even things coming from the earth, the sulfur, the colors, the hot springs, like what was happening around you. And
Right.
so now my collections, I try and tone down the amount I create
Mm.
and focus on feelings that I want to put onto the canvases,
Mm.
outside of a prolific kind of place of creating. So being intentional is very important. Some of the best advice I ever got in those early days when I was painting in a driveway, I asked a friend to come over to photograph my artwork. He's a famous photographer. And I was like, here's the art and here's the stuff and blah blah blah. And what do you think? And he's like, I think it looks like shit. He's like, this is this and that's that and da 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 da. And I was like, oh wow. I was like, that was my first like art thing. I was like, all right. And then he left, and I stayed up all night long, and I took all the art out of the house, and I spray painted over it white and started over again. And
Wow.
uh, and it was the most important thing that could have been said to me at the time, because it's not like my art wasn't beautiful, but he's like, you could be better if you were intentionally trying to do something there. And I heard it, and I was like, all
Wow.
right, let me try and do that. So I wanted to make a giant buffalo, so I did.
Wow.
Like it was that
Two of
switch
them.
flick, that switch, two of them. Yeah, because you got to have somebody, you got to be together. I always make
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
whenever something like that. But so
It's
that
crazy.
was important.
Yeah, I mean, we're just looking at it on a screen. I just see it. I'm so like not there, but it's got so much energy. It really does. And I think the reason I thought what I did was this. I had recently, I don't really watch a lot of stuff, right? But every once in a while, I'll watch something on Netflix or, find something. And I just watched this very odd show called Outer Range. And it was about these two rancher families, this big ranch, and there was this weird portal on one of the properties, but there was this buffalo throughout the series that would kind of just appear in the fields, and there was such a presence and such an energy, and it was related to the Indians, and I think that's why I was like, I'm getting this Indian vibe from that. But what you did validate for me was the spiritual nature of the intention of what we're looking at, that image, which definitely I feel like is a kind of a connection to a higher vibration and a intention, you know what I mean, and that
Yeah.
energy of Gaia,
And they're new. This is
newest
they're
piece. Wow, we're
just
getting
here. Yeah.
and you've been very successful with your artwork. I want to actually talk to you on a friend level about that, because I'm a photographer and I have some stuff, and I would really love to get some insight into how to kind of go that direction. I've never really wanted to show my artwork or anything like that, although I very often imagine huge prints of some of the pieces that I make, because I'm like, wow, this would look great, just like you're sitting there in front of your piece. It would look so great. So we'll talk about that off screen on our personal time.
I can assure you, your art is exactly the kind of art that I want to show in my gallery. So we can absolutely have that conversation. I haven't even seen it yet, but I know that it's exactly what I want to exhibit.
Right, I just got some chills. That's awesome. So all right, so let's take a look at some of your artwork. Give you a little bit of a showcase here, and you were just saying you like to do things in twos, and this first piece I picked here, I think represents that. Tell me about this piece.
Winter is coming. So this is I create also in an industrial method. These buffalo are on traditional stretched canvas with museum archival acrylics and paints on them.
Mhm.
What you're looking at here is hammered copper in the eyes, so large chunks of copper. And then I create a chemical reaction on these industrial substrates. So those are individual 2-inch thick industrial. I'll call it a canvas, but it's not. It's solid. And then I'll create a chemical reaction that I've learned how to begin and then stop where I want it to happen and how long I want it to happen without taking away from places I want to remain. And it's not, you can never recreate it. It's a
Wow.
one-time thing,
It's
but
organic, right?
I can tool it in a way that I can control some of those details, at least to the best of my ability. And
Wow.
so they're framed in metal that offers some structure to the, I'll call it a canvas. And they're wire hung, but they're about 49 by 49. So it's a
Awesome.
large installation, and it's very powerful. When you walk in the room, you feel it. It's called Winter is Coming, and it was like the dire wolf from Game of Thrones,
Hmm.
feeling kind of creature, but very large, very there.
Hmm.
And it's funny, you go through seasons of life, and when you're creating, and some of my pieces are darker and very intense, and then I have some like really beautiful flowers and
Right.
these buffalo,
Right.
that
Right.
are
Right.
hanging out
Right.
here.
And that's
So
what I was loving about your art as I was looking at it. But you just added a whole set of dimensions by telling me what your technique was, because I assumed it was like a more of a painting medium, and I'm really curious as to that process, that chemical reaction process. I
yeah,
mean, I went to art school, so I had friends who, I mean, I know even lithography on stone, is kind of there's a process to that, that adds this kind of organic.
come to the studio. Come to the studio one day. You have a full tour.
I will definitely be coming to the studio. We're going to definitely talk about that when this is over, when I stick you backstage. But yeah, these are, again, I'm just looking at this on a screen, and I can tell, that I do want to come to the studio. I want to be present with this piece in its presence, because it's just so amazing. And when you see some of the details on some of these pieces, as far as the textures go and stuff. So all right, let's take a look at another one. This is awesome. Tell us about.
This is the same method that I was just talking to you about, but with no mixed media, so no added metals or fabrics or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually currently hanging up in my wife's office, and it's this beautiful piece that I was focusing on, like this pink kind of marmalade, sparkling marmalade, grapefruit color palette, rose petal, like pink rose petal on the stark white. And in parts of the canvas, the white area is submerged beyond the front of the surface up to like an inch and a half. So it's really carved out, these caverns of texture, and um, it's a almost trauma to the surface, like of
Mm-hmm.
what's happened. And I have these. I actually brought some stuff to show you, and I
Oh
can show
yeah.
you when you take me off that camera angle, on how I tool a little bit of this. I kind of brought some things to my at my feet here.
Let's see
So
what you got.
so these are unbraided ship ropes.
Cool.
So I lay these ship ropes over those pieces, and they're really, really cool. They're really used. They're spray painted. I take burlap, and I'll like open up burlap and put that over that industrial surface, and the reaction will go around these tools. I use like deer horns, responsibly sourced. These are all spray painted because they always get spray painted while I'm working. So they're really cool,
Nice.
and responsibly sourced.
I love that you
I
say that. I have a friend who does bug taxidermy, and he gets them from, like they've lived
Yeah,
nice lives, and like, you
totally.
know what I mean? Yeah, like it's great.
We all shed our horns,
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
I use snake skin. These are,
Yeah, I have a couple pieces. I think a piece
yeah.
or two that's queued up
So
with the snakeskin.
these are important. I saw that you had a guest on your show, Tommy Chung. I have
I
the
do, yeah.
original Big Bamboo record. I know everyone's going to ask with the rolling paper inside.
Wow, holy
So
moly.
talk about discipline. So Big Bamboo record, gotta have that in the studio.
That's
And then
awesome.
traditional carpentry tools, trowels and things of that nature. I use.
So you were a carpenter at one point, or you still are, I guess, right?
Still am. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still a builder by trade. And
Yeah.
when I was 17, I started building with my uncle, and he taught to build as a solo builder from the ground up.
Right.
So I recently just framed a home for the most part on my own, building the structure of the home, just kind of one
Awesome.
stick at a time. Yeah, it
That's
was
awesome. I
incredible.
had my grandfather came over from Hungary, and he was a furniture maker.
Oh, cool.
And my uncle kind of followed in his footsteps. And what's so cool, and it applies to you too, is I feel like there are people who take that kind of craftsmanship. I guess it's an art, right? There's an art to building furniture, but
Yeah,
then really make it art by like just, I mean, I remember he had a burlap wall, and he took all of the different old tools and stuff, and he made like a display, and it was like it was a beautiful artistic display of all the different tools, to make furniture and do things. But my uncle was always very artistic with he took the furniture making thing to an artistic level. So he would
yeah.
build different sculptures out of the different pieces, like I can remember as a kid, he took the different handles from cabinets and like put them all together and made an art piece out of that. And I guess that's kind of where I get some of my creativity from, in
Yeah,
my
just
games.
create, like just the
Yeah.
fun free flow spirit to create.
Well, I think spiritually, as I'm getting older, I'm definitely seeing that that is really the purpose of being here, right? I mean,
Yeah.
is to create, right? And I think that's why people who can really tap into that seem to be the most happy and the most grounded people. Also, the most insane sometimes, but also the most fun, right? So it's cool, awesome. Let's take a look at a couple more pieces here. What do we got here? Boom! I love this one.
West. This is also that same style. This is one of the first pieces. So the moon is a pool chemical lid, and you can see where the ropes were on the canvas, and it is the landmark piece that came out of that collection, in my opinion. It'll be exhibiting this winter at a local gallery, and it has so much emotion to it. And
Mm-hmm.
you talked about crying before, and whatever. When I'm down here creating, sometimes I'll be moved to tears, not like, oh my God, my art is so beautiful, I'm crying,
Right.
but when you see what it feels like to put something from inside to outside, and it comes in a visual form that's
Mm-hmm.
different from what I normally have been doing in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I've really connected with it in a way. And this is a piece that really stands out because it
Let
moved
me see if I can
me.
zoom in on it. Oh
You
yeah, look,
know,
I can zoom in.
yeah,
Nice.
it was very moving, and I think when somebody, I've been honored and blessed that people have collected my art, and a woman really, one of my first collectors, changed my perspective on buying. And she's like, I don't have a spot for it yet, but I'm just going to lean it on the wall so the girls, she had these two twins, get used to seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a
Mm-hmm.
piece called The Joker, and totally rad mixed media piece. And so like when I saw when someone has the art in their home, they come home from a bad day or from a good day, or their kids are growing up. Like, she wanted her kids to get used to having the art in the home,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it was going to absorb. It's like the crystal, it's like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing that's like taking in, like, it's a where to get a place to get lost. That's not a device,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
like a piece of art that you can like hold
Absolutely.
and touch and be in front of. And it was at that moment that I knew that art and I could find a relationship with one another,
Mm-hmm.
and a
Mm-hmm.
happy balance.
That's beautiful, man.
Like, not
That's so
everything
cool.
goes away. Some things get painted over. These buffalo used to be, I can spin my camera, but they got painted over from these graffiti pieces that I made.
Oh wow.
So they used that's the original art. That was a triptych, and
Right.
I painted over it and made the buffalo.
Wow.
So nothing's sacred in the studio. Also,
I,
everyone's
I
up
I
on a
also
chopping
love
block.
that. Yeah, I love that sentiment too, where you don't marry yourself. You're like, oh well, this piece is done, and it's just going to be that forever. Like you're like, hey, what the hell? I mean, life is always changing, and
Just adding another chorus to the song, you know.
exactly, exactly. I had an interesting conversation. I had a guest on my show, Lori Ladd, who's an author. She wrote a book called The Divine Design, and it was a lot about it talked a lot about consciousness and about the different dimensions and kind of like a bigger energy creating the earth and why it was created. um and one of the things that we got into when I was reading the book, I didn't feel, I'm not a big reader, right? But I really was enjoying reading the book, and I didn't feel like I was reading. I felt like I was actually, I don't want to say communicating with the book, but
Experiencing it.
I was experiencing, it was a feeling. I was feeling the book. I was like really like, and we got into this concept that as creators and as consciousnesses, when we create something, it is a consciousness that we're creating, right? So like with a song, somebody creates a song, and anytime somebody else listens to it, they're experiencing that song, they're feeling
Yeah.
things from it, whatever it's bringing out. So there's a absolute translation to that in your art, like you were saying, like you feel things. And I know for me, sometimes when I'm working with a photo that I took and manipulating it and doing stuff, I feel like it's almost being channeled, right? Like the art
Yeah.
is talking to me and just telling me like, hey, do this, try this, do that.
And
And
don't be afraid to try it. Like we want young, fearless artists. We want kids to be creating art and not being afraid to mess up. There's no such thing as messing up, you
that's right,
know?
that's
And
right,
it's like
another great sentiment.
just go do it.
Yeah, totally. Tim is saying his grandfather was an artist who was
Oh,
commissioned to paint
cool.
murals all over the island and the city. Awesome.
Wow. That's
That's
awesome.
great. See, art touches everybody. Art is just, it's such a commonality between all of us. Like music, same thing. It's like it's everything is going to touch somebody somehow, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Even if they're pissed off at it and they hate
and that's a
it.
valid energy too, right? I
Totally.
have
Yeah.
I have a friend who is he's got a show, and he's a bit of a cynic. I call him a cynic, right? And he calls me his happy friend, who like I'm way too into positivity, and like and he tries to always say, well, you got to have the dark, and I say I honor the dark. I totally know there's a dark, but I just, am I going to spend my energy,
Yeah.
lifting the dark and focusing on it? No, I feel better, with the light. So, and it's fine. The dark is a valid energy. If you feel better there, just go over there and be dark.
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly.
Um, so I got a couple more pieces. I know we're a little over the hour, but I'm enjoying
I'm
this.
on no schedule.
I'm
It's up to
enjoying
you.
this way too much. This one I really like. This one is called Volcano.
Interesting. Um,
Volcano.
yeah. So this is a small piece. It's about 12 inches by 36, I think. And I work normally on a very large scale, like I was saying before, but
Mhm,
every now and then I'll force myself to get involved in a smaller surface area to
mhm,
create that same sentiment. When something's large, inherently it's going to catch your eye, and whether it sucks or you like it, it's either going to be a big letdown or going to be a big awesome. It's just
mhm, mhm,
regardless, it's still big. So forcing myself to move into a smaller space and technique wise and emotion wise, add in this iron, and I use a fabric that almost disappears completely, but I trap it in time with different paints and adhesives to get it from disappearing.
mhm, mhm,
And then I add in my own desert sands and things of that nature to these mixtures, and it creates a really incredible surface and texture. And I'll create the chemical reaction before I do any of that, and then I'll add in all the mixed media and the tones and paints afterwards. And
mhm,
so
mhm,
this piece is super complicated in that it has so many different avenues and areas within the piece, from the
mhm,
strict iron surface in some of the spots where it's exposed, to the lusty fabric that's kind of stretched on it. When the fabric
mhm,
disappears, it creates emotion because when something's leaving, it's emotional,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
barely holding on, bare in some spots, barely holding on to being there. and they all come together to create this like orientation that I don't know. I don't understand orientation. I just do whatever feels to me where it's got to go,
Right.
and I don't understand color. I just make whatever colors make me feel happy. But you learn and you kind of stay in your lane, and then
Mhm.
jump out every now and then. So a lot of these paints are spray paints that are toned on top of the piece once it's completed.
I gotcha. And so I'm imagining the iron is the black area. Am I right or no?
It's mixed. There's fabric
Okay.
in there, and then the iron is buried within underneath that fabric space.
And when you
Um,
say iron, I know when I was in college, ceramics, I was doing ceramics, and we would mix our own clay, and some of the different things we worked with and learned were the different materials mixed in with the clay. One of them was an iron oxide.
okay.
We had mixed that in with the clay, and for me, for that piece, it made the piece kind of black. In the firing, it became black, and kind of had this quality to it. That's why I kind of
Yeah,
assumed that.
these are
Uh,
like iron rods that I'll use like benders to bend and then put into the material and then
oh,
bury them in stuff. Uh,
okay, I
there's
see.
a piece on that page that you must have been on to see this one under the industrial works. It's called Iron Web,
Hmm.
and that shows you a clean view of white fabric over rusted iron. I actually brought a piece of iron to show you.
Let's take a look.
You
Hold
were
on.
asking. These are
Yeah.
some of the iron rods that I rust outside.
Oh wow.
This is part of
So
a
that's like
series.
you're preparing your iron there by leaving that
Yeah,
outside. Nice.
yeah. This is going to be part of a series for a friend of mine who's a winemaker, and we're going to create these industrial sculptures to tell the hardship of farming. Everybody grabs a glass of wine, but doesn't know what was lost making it.
Right.
And so I'm interested in telling that kind of a story through some of this industrial art too. So
Wow.
we want to extract a lot of rust, a lot of earth, a lot of emotion. It's like the sickle and the soul, like
Right.
this
Right. Right.
cutting of the earth to make this thing, and everyone's like partying and crushing the wine, but like there's like sorrow, like they lose a
Right.
crop,
Right.
there's
Right.
like this rain, all this stuff. So the iron, I use rods. I've built sculptures out of reclaimed like weightlifting equipment,
Mhm.
with like raw wood burls. I've been getting into like bigger yard sculpture stuff just for fun, like
Oh,
outside.
cool. Nice.
So whatever I can get my hands on, it's treasure. If I see treasure, it's coming with me. I save
Yeah, I
everything.
was thinking that before when you were showing me the ropes. I'm like, man, you must be fun to go out with. You're just like, oh, look at that. Let's grab that. Let's
Everything is
bring that
something.
home.
Yeah,
Uh,
everything has value and purpose.
I had a girlfriend in when I was going to college and art school who loved to collect roadkill. She
Oh gosh.
loved she loved bones and feathers and like those kinds of things. So it was like, oh, we're not taking that home, are we?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
My friend went hunting
Uh,
recently, and he caught a deer, got a deer, and I was like, "You saved the skeleton for me? Like, where is it at, man? Like, come on." So same thing.
That's so awesome. So one of the cool things that you're kind of again adding more and more dimension to your artwork as I get to know you and I get to know this artwork is really how much in not only visually with the textures and the colors and the chemical reaction, but the intention with kind of like the philosophy and kind of the reasons for doing things. There's so many layers in here. I mean, when I first looked at this, the first thing I saw was kind of like, um, and don't take this wrong, but like I saw Freddy Krueger, right? I was like, oh, that's like that texture of that. But then when I saw the
Totally.
name Volcano and I started looking at it more, I was now standing at the mouth of this cave, looking into a volcanic cave, and I'm looking down this cavern, and this area on the left here is like like a stalactite or whatever, just part of the cave.
Yeah,
Obviously art, I'm just interpreting
I
the
love it.
image.
I love it.
um
I like the
and
Freddy Krueger thing too. That's pretty cool.
yeah, but that's what I love about it. I have some friends who do some artwork that you can look at and you can just extract. It's like looking at a cloud, you know what I mean? You can like see so many different things in it, and it's so great. I love that about art. But what's cool about yours is it's not anything that I see in this image is not, it's not really literal. It's still abstract.
Yeah,
Whereas my friend Brian, when I look at his artwork, you see faces and you see things, and they're more literal visions, right, that you're seeing, but this is just abstract, but it's like you could still interpret it in so many ways.
I don't normally paint things that are things. I
Right.
started painting flowers, like big abstract flowers, and that was like a thing, kind
Right.
of, and like the buffalo behind me. But you're
Right.
right on. Like abstract for me was the gateway drug into art because
Mhm.
it didn't matter ultimately, but it mattered to you. Like where
Right,
you
right,
wanted to
right.
put it.
And it's and I don't think it's an easy thing to do, to just like kind of, create this thing that might be seemingly random to somebody, but it still speaks to them and it's still beautiful.
Orientation's important. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
really good. It's a lot of skill, man. You're just an amazing artist. It's so cool to
Thank
hear
you.
some of the insides of these. I got a couple more to go here.
Sure.
This is probably what you're talking about with the flowers, right?
Brand new. Yeah, this is a new one. It's called The Rhythm is Gonna Get You.
Mm-hmm.
And it's these the flowers weren't there. It was just the colorful abstract.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it out of the gallery and brought it home and I painted flowers on it. And because I felt like something should be dancing in front of this night out, and it's like this very Miami night. It's warm out, but it's still like these feelings are flying on the dance floor, and like the rhythm's gonna get you. These roses went out, and a dozen and came out to party, man. There's half a dozen left, and they're dancing, and the colors are super vibrant. The
Yeah.
trowels are rarely blended, so I'll intentionally put a color scheme together on my trowel and keep layering and adding and adding and
Wow.
adding. And then the flowers went on, with a heavy texture. So they're actually raised off the canvas. The flowers are and their stems,
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
and they're really, really cool. And so my neighbor actually helped name this. Her name's Megan, and
mhm.
she's standing in front of it. And I was like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like Gloria Estefan. And she's like, well, the
I was
rhythm's
just
gonna,
gonna say, no coincidence that the rhythm is gonna get you is
yeah.
the
And she's
Miami
like,
sound machine, right? You're saying
yeah,
Miami.
she's like, the rhythm's gonna get you. And I was like, oh, snap. I'm like, you just named it. Like, you got it, man. Thanks.
That's
So
cool.
props to you, Megan. Thank you.
That's awesome. Props to you. Okay, so I got a couple more here.
So
Live
that's a,
wire.
yeah. So
Beautiful.
the flower piece for perspective is 5 feet by 5 feet, that tile.
Okay, 5 by 5. Gotcha.
So it's a 5 foot by 5 foot tile.
I
And
gotcha.
now
And then
I say that because this is a very small tile. This is 20 by 20. So I took
okay.
a grouping of the industrial canvases that I had some leftover materials because I'll rip them apart and destroy them, and I'll cut. The guy who makes my frames, when he frames, he saves all the scraps, and if he has enough little pieces, he'll make me a frame, and then I'll make a canvas that fits in the frame. So these, I don't like anything to go to waste in the process of creating the art, as little as possible. So it's a really great way to repurpose some of these smaller frames. And sometimes people don't have large walls for art, and these 20 by 20s are a nice little supplement. So this series was creating a neutral background with a pop of color on the forefront of the canvas above the reaction that remained with the surface of the canvas. And these are, again, you could tell the ship rope laydowns, and some of the other fabrics in the backgrounds and sands where the reaction was allowed to run free. And they're really pretty. And the metal frame complements them. I call them my jewelry collection. They're like little pieces of jewelry. And each one of them has a really unique story. I think there's 88 Days. Northern Lights is another one. That's another one of those small ones. So they're really pretty.
Yeah, this is really nice. This one reminded me the colors and kind of the textures that are happening in the background area. This reminded me of like a drone shot of over the ocean with some sandbars or something.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Really love looking at your art, David. It's so great. Look at that texture on
Thanks.
this. It's just amazing. Wow. I'm not digging too much into what your technique is here. I don't know if it's a proprietary technique, but when we talk,
After the studio tour, you'll be the number one student. You'll have
awesome. Yeah, I'm
all knowledge.
dying to know how this is done. Cool. All right, we got a couple more here. If you
Yeah.
guys are enjoying this is actually shows more
Oh,
of that mixed media, right?
this is Iron Web. This is the one I told you about. So it has a large manipulated copper pipe in the center of it. that
Hmm.
has a piece of iron running through the center of the pipe that goes into the substrate, and that's how it's fastened. And
Hmm.
then I cover it with this fabric and this paint and texture, and you can see the fabric is just holding on as it's disappearing like a spider web of sorts, and it's over a rust colored surface that has the reaction already performed on it. And at the top of the canvas, you can see a little bit of the color of the base
Hmm.
color
Hmm.
tone, and that is like the relief of the piece.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like sun rising and or sun setting to some capacity.
Hmm.
But it's a flock of birds flying by. It's like a hand in a wild grass in a field. Yet it's like an old tractor that's sitting there and there's like vegetation growing through it. Like the metal's just being overgrown by this,
Mm.
web of fabric and whatnot. And the white just gives it a real approachable simplicity to
Right.
get it into the piece. And I let the emotion of the movement of the material dictate where the eye goes and what you feel when you look at it. Like create like a neutral surface to get into it,
Right.
and otherwise it would be very overwhelming.
It's it. I feel like it is overwhelming, but not in a bad way. It's like you're
Yeah,
overwhelmed by sensation. You're just like you want to dive in and like taste
you
it.
can
It's
you can
like,
see the vertical irons in
yeah, that's what I'm
there.
looking at here. Yeah.
Yeah, that are in place. And so this is actually going to be, I'm so glad you picked this. This will be the first label released with a Hudson Valley Cabernet Franc with the
This is
winemaker.
going to be on a wine bottle.
Yeah, and it's going to be textured so you could actually feel it. Yeah,
You are
totally.
brilliant, man. You are like
Totally.
really happening. Holy moly.
So it's going
Awesome.
to be the flagship piece for that collection. So I guess this just got released here on your show. I hope it doesn't shut the internet down. This is
Yeah.
big news.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
That's awesome. No, that I again, I can't wait to talk to you more after this and just continue our friendship and learn more and more about
Yeah,
you.
buddy.
Um, so here we go. This one I thought was really
Ah,
cool.
cool. Day of the Night. You like a lot of the industrial pieces. This is that same technique. This piece is 97 inches tall and
Wow.
49 inches wide. It's a very large piece. So very cool. Those deer antlers I showed you are what stopped that reaction at the top of the canvas
Hmm.
yeah, right there.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a sword. I laid a sword down on the
Oh yeah,
canvas
I see
that the
that now.
character is holding. All of
Yep.
those little dots are a wax wine bottle top. This one of my favorite wines is Belle de Glos, and the wine you take the wax top off, and it's this really beautiful piece of wax art.
Mhm.
And so I punch them into the surface, and they help keep the surface remaining. A
Cool.
whole bunch of cool stuff. You know, it, some people walk in and see a tango, they see a dance even in this.
Oh wow,
Uh,
yeah.
it's a flustery dress. It's a held position. It's a flare of energy from the waist up, um, and kind of anchored in that white fabric and iron down below, and a lot of variation in this. Some parts of it almost ate all the way through the full 2 inches.
Oh
So
wow.
it goes so deep into the canvas, some of the reaction to create a very dramatic feel. And red, I had this really incredible artist come to my gallery and talk to me about his art recently, and he pointed out this red shows up in my pieces sometimes, and like that red at the top and some of those highlights. Um, I don't know. It's just I've now been noticing it after he pointed it out to me. I went back and looked at some of my pieces. I was like,
Yeah.
he's right. This beautiful red, and I like gold. I like metallic and shine.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's important to me. My friend teases me. He's always like, "Oh, you need more golden in your paintings." Like I don't need more gold in my paintings. Uh, I get teased a little bit, but it's I don't know. I like it. It's cool. It's a lot of energy in this one,
Yeah.
and it has a big prowess to it in its height and when you stand in front of it.
Awesome. I didn't dig too deep, so I didn't get to. I probably got like I saw so much with the industrial section that's where I grabbed most of the stuff.
I
But
I love it.
yeah, but I'm gonna. Oh, that's not it. Hold on. Where is it? I believe. Let me just pop it up over here.
And to
There we
touch
go.
touch base on the vibration situation, my friend Vinny, who was big into the sound healing, I created a large piece of art a year ago and didn't know what was going to happen with it. So I built this room that was a forest in the art gallery, and it had 10 chairs in it, and you can sit in front of this piece of art that
Mhm.
was 8 feet by 7 feet. Uh, but prior to its getting there, Vinny wrote a soundtrack to me reading a poem about this piece of art, and I put a big speaker underneath it, and folks would sit on this 8 minute experience, and you would hear his sound bath instrumentation while looking at the art and hearing the poetry. I'll show it to you when you come to the studio. I have it set up here.
That's
And
awesome.
it helped. I could never look at my art the same without his sound. It
Oh,
needed
interesting.
the vibration, and it was a really big speaker, a really good speaker, and you felt the gong. He like opens
Oh,
it up
that's
with a
awesome.
big gong that rushes right through your chest. And so I've become interested in the performing art experience,
Mhm.
kind of going beyond the canvas. And he helped me kind of dive into that a little bit. So I wanted to mention that because that was really important to share.
And that's just more evidence that we need to talk some more, because I have some friends who do some sound healing, and I play with projectors, and
Cool.
it's
Yeah,
like
I saw your
3D
post about that recently.
projection mapping and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and projecting images onto models and things like that. um and we've been kind of talking about doing a visual sound healing experience, and the idea of the immersive experience, that stuff is amazing. I love that. I don't
Yeah.
know if you have seen things like Zero Space, which was in New York City. It's like art installations in every room, but then there's this underlying story that goes through the whole thing, and there are actually actors that are involved, and it's an immersive experience. Zero Space was specifically, the story was that these interdimensional beings had opened up a portal in the middle of New York City, and that the installations were actually meant specifically for these interdimensional beings to observe how the humans were interacting with them.
I think that's
So
probably true. I think it's probably actually happening. I think that probably
it
happened.
it's probably actually happened. And some of the characters were these interdimensional beings that had these ridiculous awesome costumes, and they were non-verbal, so they would just walk around with this
Oh wow.
imposing presence. And then there was the kind of like the Men in Black agents who were walking around with clipboards, and like kind of part of the experience was actually you would go there with your friends, but they would intermingle the different groups in these kind of like almost like these exercises that you see
Cool.
at team building
Yeah, yeah,
exercises
yeah,
kind of thing.
totally. Yeah.
So it was really amazingly. I love that art has expanded into that dimension. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That you can create these experiences like that. It's so cool. So yes, we'll definitely be talking about some things after this. I just wanted to show people, this is your website, David Lionheart Art, davidlionheart.art. I love the name Lionheart. It's just so appropriate. So if you're interested in what you've been seeing, you can see more of David's art there. You can also find out more about him, his philanthropy, the book, which, I had that here too, Reflections of a Champion, which is that's Gary, and the podcast that we were talking about earlier, some of the stuff that goes on there. I believe I also wanted to just give you some props here for your Play for Your Freedom. That's the organization we were talking about earlier. I tried to prepare some stuff to give you some shout outs and some
Thanks. That's
props.
awesome,
Yeah.
man. Thank you.
Um, so David, you are amazing. Like I said, I just feel like you're this light being, who is bringing love and calmness to the world, which is so needed. I know I need it, even though I try to do the same thing. I need that too. So we're going to talk some more. Do you have any parting words of advice for my audience? Words of encouragement, words of wisdom? I know you do.
Uh, you know, sometimes listening is the most important thing that you can do. And I talk a lot, and I think the most important thing I ever did in my life was begin to listen. And so even after an hour and a half of chit chatting, I say be ready to listen tomorrow and tonight to yourself and to those around you, and go with what your gut tells you to do, and make sure it makes you happy and others happy.
Beautiful. Awesome. I think, that's why I do the show, because I like to listen. I like to learn about other people and get to know them and give
And I
them a place
appreciate
to,
you. I
yeah.
want to say thank you to you for giving a voice to folks like me, but also giving yourself a voice because it's important because I need you too. And so thank you for what you're doing. And to everybody who chimed in tonight, I really appreciate the comments and your journeys. And I look forward to seeing these shows. So I just want to say thank you everyone
Awesome.
who's signed in and who listens to you.
I love it. I feel it. Thanks, David. Thanks, Lionheart and Michael. Great episode. Thanks. Great show. Awesome. I love that encouragement. You see, you give, you get, it all works. Everybody's happy. All right, Dave, I'm going to put you backstage. Stay back there for a minute.
Cool.
I'm just going to say goodbye, and I'll talk to you in a minute. So satisfying. Just a wonderful conversation with a wonderful human being, proving that there are wonderful human beings out there who are looking out for the safety and honor and all the good stuff, looking to raise all of our vibrations. I love people who encourage other people to be them best selves instead of competing with other people and trying to be better than other people. It's like, I know there's something good in you. Show me something good. And that's what happens. So thank you guys for being here. Next week, I have Brian Orlando from The Shark here on Long Island. He is got a podcast called Rock and Soul Tarot. He started getting into tarot cards, even though he's a rock and roll DJ, and he uses these tarot cards that all depict like rock and roll musical figures, the Beatles and Elvis, and they all represent different parts of the tarot. So I'm excited to talk to him next week. If you are interested, come and show up. If you've enjoyed the show, tell a friend, share it. If you don't subscribe to the YouTube channel, please do, because I'm just going to keep coming back every Thursday and doing this until you love me, if you don't already. So I love you guys. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week. Peace.